Hey everyone, let's continue talking about our categories of lipids and what makes them different. So in our last conversation, we covered the general idea of what a fatty acid is. Now we're going to talk about some of those more complex lipids that utilize fatty acids as a component of their structure. We'll also look at some of the unique lipids that we mentioned that do not utilize fatty acids. One of the main types of complex lipids that utilize fatty acids are called glycerolipids. And you can see that they are a type of storage lipid, meaning they're usually stored on an organism, remember, for protection, insulation, and also to utilize as energy. These contain a glycerol backbone, which we'll look at, and they have attached fatty acids. Now, the majority of our fatty acids in biological systems are found in these glycerol type lipids, in particular triacylglycerides. The tri portion here just means that there are 3 fatty acids connected. So again, here's the general setup. We have glycerol as our backbone, and you can see 3 fatty acid chains that come off of it. There are such things as diacylglycerols or monoacylglycerides. These are just the same thing, but with only 1 fatty acid or 2 fatty acids. But again, most of the time we find our fatty acids bound into a triacylglyceride. So 3 fatty acids connected to a glycerol molecule. If we have something that is a solid, usually those are referred to as fats. And if we have something that is a liquid, usually those are generally referred to as oils. So these words can kind of encompass a variety of triacylglycerides. Triacylglycerides are also the main way that we store lipids. Generally, fatty acids are not free floating in our system. They are bound up to these triacylglycerides. And in fact, they're our main way of storing body fat. So these are the guys that are making us chubby during the holidays. Triacylglycerides are less soluble in water than just a normal fatty acid. And this is because of a reaction that needs to take place to attach those fatty acids called an esterification. They are also less dense than water, so most of these fats and oils that are triacylglycerides are going to float on water. So let's take a closer look at what this chemically looks like. Here is glycerol. You can see it is a 3-carbon chain, hydrocarbon chain, and each carbon has an OH group attached to it. So it is an alcohol to the extreme. Glycerol is pretty polar by itself. These glycerol units undergo a reaction in which their alcohol group reacts with the carboxylic acid group. Remember what that looks like? Looks like this. That is attached to a fatty acid. Remember, this is the general structure of a fatty acid. So this carboxylic acid group reacts with the alcohol end of a glycerol, forming an ester. And if you remember, again, from organic chemistry, an ester is when you have this carbonyl followed by an oxygen that is attached to another carbon. So you can see here is our fatty acid chain. Here's that carbonyl group. This is the oxygen, and it is attached to the carbon on the glycerol backbone. So highlighted is here the glycerol backbone that exists in a triacylglyceride, and there's room for 3 different fatty acids to attach to each of those original alcohols, forming again an ester. So this is an ester bond when it's in the form of a triacylglyceride that is holding together these fatty acids onto the glycerol backbone. Now, each of these positions can be bound up by a different fatty acid. In this case, in our example, you can see closely, position number 1 going from left to right is a ster oil. So this is 1 ster oil, 2 lineoil, 3 palmitoyl glycerol. That would be the name for this triacylglycerol. So again, this just means 3 fatty acid groups on a glycerol. That's what the triacylglycerol stands for. Why do we utilize fats as storage? And in particular, why do we utilize triacylglyceride as storage? They have an advantage over sugars, polysaccharides. If you remember from our chapter on sugars, we looked at things like starch, which also are a way for us to store energy, right? That starch is a way to hold a bunch of glucose molecules together to store them later for energy. Fats actually carry more energy per carbon because of the way that they get chemically reduced. And this is something we'll go further on into as you go through biochemistry. You'll look at the actual energy breakdown that a fat has versus a sugar. Fats carry more energy. And again, this is per the carbon numbers that are there. They also carry less water because they are nonpolar. So they're easy to store. They can be compacted into an area that doesn't, it's not utilizing water. And they just generally are going to be more efficient. They carry more energy. So we end up using glucose and glycogen, these carbohydrate stores, for short-term energy needs because they're quick. We can quickly break them off and get that energy. But fats are used for more long-term energy needs. They're good storage, but they are more slow in the way that they need to be broken down and delivered that energy. So even though they have more energy in them, it's slower. So this is why if you exercise, you're going to first burn off your reserves of carbohydrates and sugars, and then start turning to those fats that you're storing for energy.